the delay, I invite Mr. Suresh Kumar sir for an enthralling session. Sir, the dais is all yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the lovely introduction. The simple introduction of me would be that this is somebody who had tried to study mechanical engineering in the College of Engineering, Trivandrum. I started off in 1988. I finished in 1988. And after that, I've been doing various things. And my current assignment, I'm working with All Cargo Logistics. It's a logistics company based in Bombay. So wonderful to be with all of you. Let me start by saying that this is the third or fourth year that I've had the opportunity and privilege to come and talk to the bright young students of the MBA batch. And this was one of the most impressive beginnings that I've heard, and round of applause to you for the lovely way in which you introduced the BBC Club. Please give a round of applause for the passion with which you shared information about your club. And I'm sure your club is doing well. I can see a lot of names on screen. It'll be better if you can see the faces, unless you're riding your bike and connected or something. I would request you to keep your screens on. It's much better talking to faces rather than to names on a black screen. So a couple of, while most of you try to switch on your cameras, I just wanted to ask a few questions before we get started. And you could just post your answers in the chat section. One is, how many of you are in the final year or the second year of your MBA course? Not a difficult question, I think. So there's not only MBA, there are also BTech students. Mr. Murugesh says, to those of you who know Murugesh, way to introduce myself is to say that I'm his younger brother. And another way of introducing myself is to say that I have followed the footsteps of Murugesh and Satish and then Kasturi. That's another way of introducing myself to this group. Good to see Satish also here this evening, who was a mentor in many ways for me when I was studying in college. And my brother has always been my mentor. So I'm not getting answers from the group here. So my question is, how many of you would be in the final year of either your BTech or final year of MBA? So third year, Gauri Nair. Gauri is the only person who seems to be wanting to talk to me. She has been following up very closely, sharing details about the program, sending me a prompt reminder at 6:55 today saying that I have to join. So thank you for that, Gauri. So the answers which have come in seems to be all third year. Okay, so the second question quickly, just to get a sense, how many of you have been through this session with me last year or the previous year? If somebody has been through this, if you can just say yes, that will be useful for me. Hello. CET seems to be a little, most of them third year students is a preparation for the oncoming placement seasons. Okay. So I'm going to take you through what I have prepared, and this is something that I've shared with your seniors the last couple of years. So some of you would have attended those sessions. There wouldn't be a lot of things which are different from what I talked in the past, and I thought about it. What am I going to come and talk to all of you? Actually, the things which the BBC Club had wanted me to talk about is what should you keep in mind while approaching a GD session. That's the agenda or the topic given to me. And it hasn't changed much over the last 2-3 years that I've been talking to you. I think it's remained the same. And therefore, if there is some repetition in what I've said, it's simply because some of these are basic fundamentals which are there, which doesn't change every year. And there are perspectives which keep changing every year. And you could ask them through questions when I complete my session. If there are other questions during the course of the session, please raise your hand using the emoji which is there on the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to stop me if there are any questions that you would like to ask me. So with that, and I'm just checking with Gauri, are we good to start?
Yes, sir.
Yeah?
Yeah, we can start.
So please, can you give me rights to share my screen?
I think it's open, sir.
I can share? Okay.
Yeah.
Are you able to see my screen, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I've called this session GD in a GD, and simple to understand after the first 2-3 slides as to why I'm calling it in that manner. One more question before I proceed further. I hope, and I'm speaking in a speed which is okay with you, and I'll try to talk in Malayalam if you want me to. Is there a need, Gauri? You're the anchor person, so you can tell me. Is my voice clear? Am I talking too fast?
No, sir. Everything is going fine.
Everything is good? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So today, what are the things that we will talk about over the next 30-45 minutes? A group discussion. What are the objectives of organizations or institutions having group discussion? The group discussion experience. I think like in anything that we do, there is something that you need to do before the experience, something that you need to do during the experience, and something that you need to do after the experience. These are things that I would like to take you through, and there will be enough time for us to take questions from you, and Murugesh is there, Satish is there. They will also help me respond to the questions that you may have. So in terms of objectives, why do organizations, or why does a recruiter have this group discussion? I think there isn't anything in our country which is not competitive. There are multiple applicants for a job. There are more than the required number of applicants for a seat in a college. And therefore, there needs to be a method by which you need to choose from the available talent pool. For an organization, there are multiple people who would want to join them. So how do they choose? There are different ways in which they shortlist based upon your CV. I heard that you had a very good session on how to prepare your CV. I think that's a very important first step that you do. The CV goes through a shortlisting process in various companies. Some of the companies have even moved to shortlisting CVs using artificial intelligence, and not even a person looks at it. The CVs are read by programs, and they pick out a set of people. Along with the CV, organizations would also look at your academic record. And some of the things which a lot of organizations do is in terms of your consistency in performance. And the second thing is whether there is an upward trend in the graph that you have. So when I look at myself, I never had that upward trend because your 10th standard marks are perhaps the best that you do. Then 10th, 12th marks come down, and that's the time you get into engineering or medicine or whatever professional course that you choose. Then you have that freedom, and then possibly the marks in engineering and all those things start to dip a little compared to what you scored in your 10th and your 12th. I think that is not something that you can correct at this stage. But for those of you who are in the second year or the third year, I think it's a good idea to keep pushing your academic marks upward, which will lay the foundation for your selection process. CV will be read. Somebody is going to make notes of how your academic credentials have progressed. And then there might be a written test, and you qualify that, and then you come into a GD. So when somebody is sitting from an organization for a GD, they have a fair understanding of the candidate. It's not that they are only looking for what you're speaking in the GD. Most organizations come prepared with knowing that these are the set of candidates whose academic records are good, who have done a lot of good projects. And now let's see how they do in the GD. So GD is like one more element in the selection process of organizations. Your objective, obviously, when you go for a GD, you want to get the job, you want to get the admission, and I think that's the primary reason why you're appearing in a GD. For that, absolutely, you must give as many reasons as possible for the organization to choose you or for the institute to give you admission. Goes without saying, avoid anything that could pull down your candidature. And then we will talk about that. What are some of those no-nos which are there in terms of when you participate in a GD, participate in an interview. So that's the basic thing. Recruiters, why do they look at you? And for you, what is the importance of a GD? I think that's what I told you over the last few minutes. Ultimately, the objective is you need to get yourself discovered in the GD. People sitting on the other side, people sitting in a panel need to discover you. And that is why GD in a GD comes in, getting discovered in a group discussion. And that's why I called this session GD in a GD. So what are things that one needs to do or put themselves in a much better space so that you get discovered in a group discussion? I will now take you through the 3 stages that we talked about before the GD, during the GD, and after the GD. We will spend some amount of time to look at what are the things which would help you be successful in a GD session. Obviously, GD is a culmination of a set of things that you have done and not something that you wake up one day and go for. I think the person who introduced the session said that he knows a lot of people who are very good in communication, but end up possibly faltering or not being as confident in a GD session. There could be reasons for that, but I don't think that there is any problem at this stage in life for you in your careers which cannot be solved through preparation. There will be problems that will come across, but I think if you put your mind to it, if you prepare well, I'm sure you will be able to solve any problem. And I think that's the confidence that youngsters have. And I think studying in a good college like College of Engineering Trivandrum, in a capital city of a very good state, I think you're confident young citizens of this country. And that confidence is what you need to carry with yourself when you go into a GD. Moving away from that, and just to talk to you about the group discussion format, we spoke about aptitude tests, academic performance, and this is a time-tested method. GD is one of the elements that companies have used. There are various things that companies are now moving into in terms of psychometric tests, competency-based assessments that they do. They also give you case studies to work on and then come back. And this is something which companies have started to do for MBA recruiting MBAs. I think typically a case study is given and then you're asked to come and talk about the case. So various things are happening. However, group discussion seems to be still a very popular method for selecting candidates. So now we know the objectives. We also know what the recruiters almost always look for in a GD. We will now get into typically what are things that a recruiter or a person from an institute who is taking people for his postgraduate program. I'm sure a lot of you would write the CAT and then you would want admission into one of those important management institutes across the country. And what is it that the person sitting on the other side, when you are participating in a GD, what is it that they look out for? Essentially, there are a set of attributes and there could be different ways and terminologies that you can use for this. I have tried to put this in the form of 9 attributes, which you could kind of keep in the back of your mind and see how you're placed in all that. And I understand over the next couple of days, we have some group discussion mock sessions. And I would like to use the same framework when we go through it so that you're able to. So I will try to use the same framework when we do the mock GD sessions. And again, for the mock GD sessions, we will have a set of your seniors who will join along with Murugesh, Satish, others will be there. And we will try to use this when we go through the GD. So here are the set of things that I would like to start with. One is, and then the first impressions and the early impressions that you make while walking into a GD room, into an interview room, is your appearance, and then follows the attitude that you carry. So these are two things. And what are some key things that one is looking out for is to know how keen are you about being there for that particular session. And your youngsters, you know how to put your best foot forward. So in terms of appearance, please be formal, because most organizations would like you to be formal when you walk in for the interview. There are organizations which have a very informal culture, and if they encourage that and you know that, for sure, then possibly walk in your informal wear or things like that. But as much as possible, safer to be in a formal attire when you walk in for a GD session. If you're doing it online, which may continue for some more time, at least the upper portion of your body, let it remain as formal as possible. In terms of the attitude, when you walk into a room, how do you kind of make yourself seated? Do you give space for somebody else? There are boys and girls walking into a room. Are you jostling? How disciplined? How good do you look as a bunch of youngsters? All these things, I think someone is making a note of it most of the times, because these are small things, small indicators which give a glimpse into what you are as a person. Moving from the initial impression that you create, we come to the core of what happens in the GD. And there are 3 C's which I would like you to keep in mind. Obviously, your communication, the way in which you communicate, the speed in which you talk, all those things become important. Second would be the content, depending upon the topic. How well prepared are you? We will talk about that as we go forward. And the third thing is, how well do you collaborate in a GD? Because there are co-participants, they are also competing with you. But then life is also about collaboration, because finally, when you go and start working in an organization, you are a team player. Most of the times, there could be individual contributors, but most of the time you will be collaborating with somebody to deliver results. So communication, content, and collaboration, and your ability on that is something which organizations would kind of rate you during the course of a GD. Then is this always talked about topic about leadership, your ability to influence the group. That is reflected through the initiative that you take. There could be different things in which you will have a chance to show the initiative, in terms of deciding the topic, in terms of deciding the number of minutes that all of you are going to talk about, the order in which you may talk about, all those things. You can show your initiative. Also, various other things which we'll talk about in the next few slides. The whole session, 30 to 45 minutes of a group discussion, gives you ample opportunity to demonstrate your initiative. Because at the end of the day, when you work in an organization, one is not looking for people who are only doing what they're supposed to be doing. People are also expected to do things more beyond the call of duty, do things which stretch themselves. So a glimpse of that can be had during the group discussion. The drive that you have in the group discussion, and in terms of how committed are you to the process? How are you taking the process to a completion? Are you just a quick starter and then you remain silent during the entire thing? All these things leave an impression. And absolutely the focus that you bring in. There are times in which in a 30-40 minute discussion, after you make your points, people tend to drift away, start thinking about other things. Are the evaluators sitting on the other side making a note of it? Definitely they do. And then the thing is very simple. It's just to know what's the kind of attention span or the intensity that you bring in for a discussion. Because when you go and work in an organization, you're going to be working for 8, 10, 11, 12 hours in a day. You might not be able to carry the same intensity through that time. But I think in an important discussion in which you're seeking admission, you're seeking a job, if you are not focused, if you're not showing the drive, if that initiative is not seen, I think it kind of gives you away. So that is very, very important for you to kind of demonstrate while you're part of the GD process, and the ability to influence the course of the discussion, which we will talk about. So these are 3 things that I would kind of tell you. There are about 9 points here if we were to talk about it: appearance, attitude, communication, content, collaboration. We talked about leadership. And there are the last 2 points which I would like you to keep in mind. Is about whether you are listening and whether you're learning through the process of the GD. So some of you could say that, hey, Suresh, this is just a 30-minute process. How does one learn during 30 minutes and how does one demonstrate that? The first thing, if one has to learn, is to listen. And I think it's very important that you are seen as an active listener. Make notes if it's required. And when you have a chance to talk about what you have picked up from the other candidates who are there, your peers who are sitting there. That is a good way to say that you're listening, you're absorbing, you're learning. If you can refine a point that you have made with some learning that you have heard during the group discussion, I think these are all things which give a very positive impression about how agile your mind is. Here again, just taking you to organizations, one of the things which every organization loves from its people is learning agility. Learning agility is simply the keenness that you have as a person to learn new things, to have new experiences. And in a 30-45 minute scenario of a GD, there will be opportunities in which you will be able to demonstrate them. So these are the 9 points in total that I would request you to keep in the back of your mind. For simplicity, you can keep that as the 3 A's, including agility, the 3 C's, communication, content, and collaboration, and listening, learning, and leadership. These are the 9 points which you can keep in the back of your mind when you do your mock sessions with your friends. Maybe mark yourself on all these things and see how you are. So these 9 set of parameters will be marked in different ways. Organizations will have different ways of calling this: communication, content, presence, impact in leadership, topical knowledge, awareness. There are different ways in which this could be turned around within an organization, but essentially it all would come down to these 8 or 9 points in terms of evaluation. So in summary, what is evaluated in a GD is your personality profile. How well do you match with what the organization wants? Because at the end of the day, they like to see you work in a group, because organizations are, after all, very large groups of people. And it's very rarely that you're going to do things on your own. So that's why group discussion, in spite of many other methods of evaluation, remains a very powerful tool in the set of selection methodologies that a company uses. So I will pause here for a minute or two, and if there are any questions thus far, I would like to take them, and then get into the next portion, which is how do you prepare, how do you and actually participate in a GD. Those are the 2 portions which are now after this. So a pause for a minute. Over to you. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask. Gauri, the anchor. So,
sir,
no.
I think we would take the questions towards the
You'll
end.
take the questions towards the end? Okay, perfect. So we go ahead. And we now go into the preparation portion for a GD. And I just want to share this Abraham Lincoln quote, which I'm sure you would have heard multiple times, and you would have also used it in some conversations. Quite simple. Underlines the importance of preparation. If you have a sharp axe, the job of cutting the tree becomes simpler. So the first 4 hours in a 6-hour project is in terms of preparation. And we see this time in and time out. I'm sure in this group, there are talented people who sing. There are people who might be playing a musical instrument, people who might be playing a sport. It's never that on the day of a competition, you start playing. I'm sure you've done your work a lot of months and years, and that's what you bring in. And as they say, there is a lot of muscle memory also which comes in. A GD might not be of that length of work, but there is a lot of systematic preparation that you can do before you get into your GD sessions. And for some of the students who are here in the 2nd year and the 3rd year, you have the time now ahead of your 4th year, ahead of your 3rd, towards the end of the 3rd year, whenever campus interviews happen, or whenever you start preparing, there is enough runway time for you to start preparing. And I hope some of the points that I talk about in the next few slides will be possible for you to do in your preparations. So first is to understand what could be the likely topics. And we talked about the 3 C's, the content of what you would speak, communication. Remember those 3 points that we talked about? in that content, very important to kind of anticipate what are the things which could come in. And it's a no-brainer, whatever I'm saying here in terms of current affairs, business and economy, social issues, you being in a engineering college, things related to technology, things related to how technology would play a role in the country's development. How is technology an ally for various things? Those are all the kind of topics which will come in. And I think you can sit together, work out a list of topics, get regular information from articles, magazines, newspapers, maybe your professors and teachers in college, your own friends, your own siblings, elder siblings who are there. I think there's a wealth of information that you can pick up by talking with people, apart from searching the internet and getting all kinds of information. So once there is a set of topics that you are kind of preparing yourself for, it is something that I have found useful, and I've heard this from a lot of successful youngsters who have joined the organizations that I've worked. All of them have said that there is a pitch that they keep ready. You can call it a 1-minute speech, or you can call it a small pitch that you keep ready, which you can customize depending upon the topic. If I were to give you an example, if you are to ask to talk about the economy of the country, or if you're asked to talk about what happened in the budget, if you're asked to talk about some government initiative, say Gati Shakti, or the government's program on PPP, public-private partnership, actually, there is a set of things which are very common to all these things. It could be the pace in which the country's GDP is. It could be how India is placed amongst the different countries in terms of GDP. It could be how much India has progressed in GDP. What are the components of India's industry when we are talking about 5 trillion economy, all those kind of things. What are the different kind of components which come in? These are all very common things that you can apply for any economics topic. Similarly, if you were to pick up digital and technology, there are a set of things which are very common that you can prepare and use it for almost any topic which come in. The advantage of having a prepared 5 or 7 lines is this is something that you'll be very fluent in, and just customize it, tweak it a little bit depending upon the topic, and that can be your opening submission rather than trying to prepare on the go at the time of the GD. So a few prepared lines, a few quotes, a few statistics, I think keep that always ready and tweak it, customize it depending upon the topic that you have. The other suggestion that I would have for you is when you speak in the GD, try to have a structure for your 2-3 minutes that you're talking about. And that structure could be in different ways. If there is a topic, obviously there are pros and cons of the topic. There are advantages and disadvantages. If somebody were to say, should Aadhaar be mandatory for every banking transaction? If that's the topic, there's an advantage and there's a disadvantage. Put that in that framework and speak so that the listeners are clear that you're talking about it in a logical manner. You could also look at whether you can do a situation analysis. And one of the common situation analysis frameworks which are there is the strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. You can say that, let me look at the topic from the 4 angles and then talk about each of this. MBA students, I'm sure the Porter's framework is something which is very, very familiar. This is taught during the first year of your marketing programs. What are the factors which influence a business? The competitive framework. Maybe you can use that while talking about a topic, and this is a little for the MBA students. Also try to have a ready list of quotes that you can use for different occasions. The advantage of this is it gives you a start which makes what you say a little more memorable, relatable. And if you have picked up a quote which is powerful, I think that will resonate in the discussion. So these are things which you could be ready with. You can use a combination of this. It's not as if 10 students from CET are in a GD and all of you start with a quote. I don't think that will really work. But then there are different methods in which you can do this. So pros and cons, advantages, disadvantages, situation analysis, using a quote, using an analogy. Last year in some of the mock sessions, I heard some of your seniors beautifully starting GDs by narrating a personal story about something that they have done. So recently I was in a GD discussion, and it's about digital. And there was this candidate who started off his entire conversation telling a small story about how he ordered something on Zomato, and he built that into the discussion which was there. So I think these are all small things that you can do. Bring that slice of difference into your conversation is what I'm saying. And for preparation, your most important ally is going to be the internet, because all that I've said and more is completely available if you were to look at anyone who talks about GD. So go through it in your whatever spare time, talk about it, it'll help you. Importantly, if online is the methodology which is going to be used, please test beforehand your online infra, your lighting, your background, your microphone, your connection quality, because it looks very, very lame to be in a GD and say that, yeah, my lighting is poor and my camera is not working. So it only says that you have not taken pains to do that small bit of preparation for an important thing that you're doing. So that is something that I would request you to do. And there was this very interesting analogy that somebody told me, saying that consider yourself going for a date. What's the kind of preparation that you would do? I'm sure going out for a lunch with your favorite friend or with somebody very special, you take care to ensure that everything is fine, right from the way you look, to the way in which you're dressed, the way in which you arrive on time, to the way in which you behave. I think you put up your best foot forward. And then that shows that you're really important, and that's pretty much a good way to look at even a GD, because that shows your interest. And these are some of the things that you can do as your preparation, as you walk in to a GD. The other things that I would like you to kind of use or keep this as a reference is during the course of the GD, there will be times in which you will be starting the conversation sometimes. Sometimes you will be the second or third person speaking. Sometimes you will be the last person to speak. Sometimes you will have a great idea and you will want to come into a conversation. How do you bring yourself into the conversation smoothly without disrupting the flow, without sounding disrespectful to the other person who is speaking? I think some of the lines that you see on the screen could be used by you. And I'll take a couple of examples here. If a discussion seems to be moving in one direction, it's a nice idea to say that we all seem to be swinging to one side. Are we missing something? Can I try to bring in a new perspective to this lovely discussion that we are having? So you're saying that in a very agreeable manner. You are also kind of helping people pause and think, and you're setting the stage for what you're speaking. So if you have a very different take on something, it's good to say, let's look at it from a different angle. We have heard the speakers till now speak about the topic in this fashion. I would like to present a different angle, and this is what I would like to say. If you are agreeing to what your earlier speakers said, you could just say that, or you could just say that I have a point and I would like to build on what the earlier speakers have said. So this is just an indicative set of phrases. What I would like you to do is to consciously add some of this to your conversation. And a suggestion that I have is, a lot of people naturally speak like this. The difference is, maybe we are not always talking in English when we are talking at home, talking with our parents, talking in college, and therefore the natural language of communication for most of us would be Malayalam. And suddenly we are put into this room in which we have to talk in English. And then the natural things that we say in Malayalam might not be readily available as a translation to say in English. And I have seen a lot of students struggle to get into a conversation. And then it's very awkward. You raise your hand during a GD, then you thump your desk and somebody has to say, yeah, let Gauri speak now, kind of a thing. Instead of that, there is a way in which you can ease into conversations. That's what I'm trying to put across to you here. And try to bring this into your regular conversations. Talk amongst yourself. When you're talking amongst yourself, say the 3 months before a GD session and all those things, use this, try to bring them into your vocabulary so that you're comfortable using this at the right time. Other things, absolutely like what I said, if you have a lunch date with your special person, I'm sure you always arrive ahead of time and you make the bookings, you'll ensure that the best seat is available. Similarly, just arrive ahead of time, don't rush in, carry your own pen and notepad if it's allowed, so that you can make your notes. Typically, instructions are given right at the beginning. Please listen to them carefully. And organizations would like the entire group to follow those instructions. So if you're given 5 minutes for preparation for a GD, take those 5 minutes, prepare, and then start. Don't rush in. If they say we are giving you 3 topics and the group can take the first 10 minutes to decide on the topic, do that, just like how the evaluator has asked you to do it. Listen to the topic carefully. Sometimes organizations give a situation, they would put a complete paragraph on the screen and then say, this is the topic and there is a solution that we want for this particular situation. Take your time to read it. If anything is unclear, please ask. Please ask the interviewer, the evaluator, please ask the facilitator. It's good to ask those questions and clarify rather than make a wrong assumption. The topic, sometimes it could be a straight topic which is given. Sometimes it could be a group of topics. Sometimes the interviewers also play the game of telling you that why don't you people choose your own topic and debate it over the next 20 minutes. So all these kind of different things come in. If there is preparation time, use it. And if it is online versus in person, a lot of things would change. Be aware of that. You can use the chat box to ask questions if you're on an online GD. Because the facilitator or the interviewer is sitting, he's also there. So if you want to ask a one-on-one question, you can do that. If you want to ask a question on behalf of the group, use the Everyone facility in Zoom or whatever virtual conference that you use. Please use that, and then be aware of the difference between online and in person. At the GD, what are some of the things which can happen to you? The scenario could be 3. One, a topic that you're extremely familiar with, that will bring a smile onto you because it's a topic that you're comfortable with. It could be a topic that you know very little, and there could be topics about which you know absolutely nothing. Either any of these things, I think, take it in your stride. Don't be overly happy and be in a rush because it's a topic that you are familiar with. And don't let the body language, your chin drop, your shoulders drop, if it's a topic which is not something that you know, because in 30-35 minutes, you can learn about the topic and you can contribute. It's not necessary that you know everything about every topic. Use the preparation time. Note down the points that you want to note down. Like I mentioned earlier, if you want to put a structure to what you want to say, note it down. If you remember a good quote or something which has come in, jot it down. If you have a few prepared lines that you have, tweak it to the situation. The preparation time is actually meant for that. If there are facts that you can remember, there are times in which you could remember facts about various things. Say, for example, if somebody were to come and ask me now in logistics in India, what's the distribution of traffic between rail, road, and sea? That's a number that I have in my head. And I think I will use that when I have a conversation with somebody. Similarly, you will have topics for which you prepared. You have those numbers, bring that and then note it down. Analogies, or if you want to tell a story, revise that in your mind in the preparation time. And then, depending upon how the group behaves, there's something that I mentioned a little while back. You could be a starter, you could be a follower, you could be the person who provides a different angle to the whole GD. You could be a person who's just giving examples for a point that somebody else had said, and somebody has made a great point to kind of say, and you can say that, yeah, I agree to you, and this is an example that I would like to share, adding to the point which somebody else had said. So it also kind of adds the flavor to the conversation. There is always a rush amongst a few people to start and summarize. But please don't rush that and be so open that I want to start it and I want to summarize. There should be a natural flow in which you can get into summarizing. Looking at the time, if it's the last 30 seconds or the last 1 minute, perhaps that's the time to someone to take the initiative and say, we are now towards the end of the conversation. May I take the liberty of summarizing the conversation for all of us? take permission from the group rather than jump in and say that I'm the one going to summarize. Sometimes we have seen that because in teams, it's always good to take everybody along. Remember the third C that I talked about, collaboration, communication, content, collaboration. Collaboration is taking everybody together. And one of the things that you should do, or you could think about doing in conversations in which perhaps you have not said a lot of things, is to take the role of a summarizer. And that's a great thing to do on topics that you have not really prepared. Because in the 30 minutes, you would have heard a lot of things, and you can do a fantastic summary of all the things that you've heard and do a summary for the entire group. That's one thing that you can do. You can be a timekeeper too. So if you're starting a conversation, it's always good in the GD to set the norms for others, saying that if there are 20 minutes and there are 8 people in the group, you can say that I'm taking the liberty of starting this conversation on our behalf. We are 8 of us. The time allotted to us is 20 minutes. Let's take a minute to introduce the topic by each one of us. So that will be about 8 minutes. The last 2 minutes, let's keep for summary. And in between, we'll have about 10 minutes for discussion. That's a nice way to kind of set the structure for everybody. Remember what I talked to you about leadership, showing initiative, showing focus and drive. These are all methods by which you can say that you are a person who is taking leadership in that kind of a situation. And then setting a structure, getting everybody along with you. There could be people who could end up saying that, no, I don't agree with you. I don't want any particular order. So you don't have to be disagreeing with them. You can say that if that's what you feel, let's check with the rest of the people in the group as to what they feel. And that's again a sign of collaboration that you bring in, of how you're working together powerfully as a team. Organizations look forward to and will clearly give you good marks, make a note of it, saying that this person is a natural leader. She is a good collaborator. She is somebody who is respectful. She is somebody who wants to carry the opinion of everyone. He is someone who shows initiative. These are all things that you would like your interviewer to carry back at the end of the GD about you. So GDs are not only about who starts or summarizes. It's not only about who talks the most. It is also about a lot of these things that we talked about. During the GD, the other few things, and these are the last 1 or 2 slides that I have, is to demonstrate intent when you're speaking or listening. I think be there in the moment. Don't kind of switch yourself off. And then it's very easy for somebody to see who is engaged in a discussion and who is switched off. For 30 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever is the time, I think be in the room, be in the moment, be absolutely listening, actively listening, be alert, attentive, acknowledge, nod your head. If somebody makes a very good point, you could even clap. You could do various things which acknowledge good things that you hear. You can be agile, looking for opportunities. If somebody were to say something and you have a fantastic quote which summarizes it, or something which goes very different to that, I think bring that quote in at that point in time. Environment is something that everybody keeps talking about. So if somebody talks about that and you have a very good quote about how nature is to be protected, say that I agree with him, and listening to you, I was just reminded about this quote, and then that goes like this, and then bring that flavor into the discussion. You could volunteer to start, you could volunteer to summarize, take permission of the group as much as possible. Try not to contradict yourself, taking a position in the beginning, then changing it, and then coming back. I think in a 30 minutes, if you can't stick to one strain of thought, it's difficult. I'm not saying that you can't modify your position. Modify your position, give credit and modify your position if something that you hear is very good. But otherwise, I think avoid contradicting yourself. About interrupting, not allowing the other speaker to complete, I think these are things which, and I'm sure you'll not get into it. A good line that I had picked up in a conversation with somebody is, if you have to disagree, please disagree, but do not be disagreeable. So there is a way in which you disagree. Don't be violent, and don't be don't be sarcastic, use sharp comments. I don't think those are things which are good for any team. And the last point, absolutely, please raise the level of the discussion. Avoid raising your voice and making it as you say, as much as possible. Be assertive, Speaking in soft tones also, people can easily convey what they want to do. Avoid raising your voice, getting into arguments. Few other points, some of this we already spoke. Eye contact. The second point in this is something that I would request you to be very mindful of. When you walk into a GD with 8 or 10 people, there might be the best speaker in your college also part of that group, or maybe the whatever general secretary of the college union also part of your group. All that just doesn't matter. When you're in a group for a GD, for a job, everyone is equal. So don't kind of get into this thing of he's a very good speaker, so let's kind of make him the best speaker in this. This is your opportunity to be the best speaker in that group and take that, rather than live on reputations. Speak normally, like how we would always do along with friends and others. Structure your thought, acknowledge others, and participate and be in the moment. Avoid some of these things we said: side talk, interrupting, don't do private conversations, avoid ganging up, avoid being cynical, avoid being sarcastic. It's a topic about which we feel very badly. Ideally, these are not good things. In a discussion, we should be seen as very professional. Cynicism, sarcasm, anger, I don't think all these have any place in any group. Ganging up, 3 of you ganging up and saying that, trying to monopolize the time. I don't think when you work in a college, when you work in a group, you'd want to kind of do all those things. Finally, after finishing the GD, when the interviewer moderator says that the time is up, please leave the venue just like you have come in. No need to be congratulating somebody there and patting back and making a lot of noise. Carry back your notes, whatever you have bought in. Take a few minutes, and this is something good. And I'm sure that College of Engineering Trivandrum gets a lot of back-to-back campus interviews in which you finish one and you have to go for the next one. And you all have multiple interviews in a day. So in that kind of a scenario, it's always good to finish one, take a pause, reflect, rather than carry what happened in an interview or in a GD into the next one. Because every GD session is a fresh one, different sets of eyes are looking at you. So don't worry if you didn't do very well in the previous one. Please don't feel that, I didn't do well. There's another chance that you have. Similarly, if you have done extremely well in an interview or a GD, don't be overconfident for the next one, because the next one might be the company that you really want to join, and the first one would have been just another company. So take some time to reflect. Like they say in cricket, right? There are good batsmen who complete a century, and after that they again take guard as if they are starting the innings. I think it's a good idea to do that in these kind of situations, interview, GD, whatever. Reboot and be ready for the next interview. So in terms of getting discovered, these are some of the perspectives that I wanted to share with you. All the best for cracking it in 2022. Find the job, find the company, find the institute, which will be the best fit for you and which will take your dreams and aspirations to the next level. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that wonderful session. Now, everyone knows us CETians are a curious lot of people. And I know that you guys will be having a lot of questions to ask our wonderful guest, ask our wonderful guide. Don't worry, we will have a Q&A session with Suresh sir now. Arya will be assisting Suresh sir with all your doubts. So please feel free to ask all your questions. I invite Arya to take over the session.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Hello? Yeah, you are. You are clear.
Yes, sir. Yeah, sir. Thank you, sir. Actually, I have got a bunch of questions, and I would like to ask one by one. So, shall I start, sir?
Yeah, you could. Please go ahead.
Yes, so the first question I got is, what if a case of happens when we get an unfamiliar word or an unfamiliar topic? What to do if we get an unfamiliar word or an unfamiliar topic?
Yeah, I think we spoke about this. It's impossible for us to be knowing about everything which happens and then be prepared for all those. So if it is an unfamiliar topic and it's a 30-minute discussion, the first 10-15 minutes, you could play the role of a listener, very active listener, And I think that will give you enough points and connects in your mind, which you can possibly use to further the conversation. If it's a very unfamiliar topic, wait till the end and play the role of a summarizer of all the good points which have come in, and do a good job of summarizing what has happened. And I think summarizing a 25-minute conversation into 25 seconds is a very tough task. And if you can do that very well on a topic, it will be well appreciated by the person who's listening into you. So things that you can do are that. But if the entire group is starting to feel unfamiliar with the topic, I don't know how you can tell the interviewers that this is not something that we are comfortable with. I've really not come across that kind of situations. People just get along. It's very rare that the entire group feels very uncomfortable with the topic. So if you're the one or two persons in the group who are unfamiliar, this is one of the things that you can do. Listen for the initial portion. You could also be the starter and then say that you can set the norms for the group and then leave it to somebody to pick on from there. That could be another thing that you can do. So you're making your presence, then waiting for biding your time, using the session to build up your little bit of knowledge on the topic, and then summarizing.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We got it. And the second question is, what if someone has said what I wanted or wish to say?
Yeah, so that is something which is bound to happen. There will be people who will end up taking your point. I wouldn't say stealing your point, because there are things in which same amount of preparation, you're studying in the same college, you could have prepared together, and just by the luck of that afternoon or evening, one guy or one girl gets to speak a little early. Don't worry about that. What can you add to it? If you can add a different perspective to it, you can agree with them, saying that this is something that I would have said if I had a chance to speak. Having heard it from you, I like the way in which you put that point across. Maybe I might not have been able to put it as effectively as you did. Here is an example that I would like to add to it. So be gracious rather than show the worry in your mind. Oh, end point aaru paranju poi. Njan ini endu cheyum aa veshmam kanikanda. You can take it in a very gracious manner, saying that I would have wanted to say the same point, but the way in which you said is very good. Let me try to add something to it. So that these are excellent ways in which you're demonstrating patience, excellent ways in which you're demonstrating collaboration, teamwork. That's really more important than who said that point. Does that serve as a good response to your question?
Yes, sir. It's fine. And the next question is, to whom should we talk? To the panel or to the team?
Absolutely to the team. I think there was a slide in which I had mentioned that I didn't read it out, but I had said that, saying that eye contact with the rest of the participants. There's no talking to the team, because this is a simulation of a group. They are just watching you. Yeah, if they had an opportunity to put a camera and watch from outside, they should have done that. But a lot of times in our college campuses, it doesn't work. So you're not talking to the group. And imagine if this is something that you're doing online, then you're talking to the camera. If it's an online GD, then there is no panel that you're looking at. Then you're looking at the camera and you're speaking to the camera. So if it's a in-person GD, please talk to the group. Keep eye contact within the group.
Okay, sir, we got it. And the next question is, suppose if one have a lot to speak about the topic, which means that one have a lot of knowledge about the topic, but does he should say all of the things about the topic which is known to him completely?
I wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't suggest that. But you can always make a small cue right at the beginning, saying that this is a topic that I really love, and I've got 5 points to talk about. And I would like to start with 2 of them, and just say 2 of them. But then you have let the entire group know that you have got 5 points to talk about. And sometime during the group, you can come and say, you can rejoin the conversation and say, I had mentioned that I had 5 points to talk about. I spoke about 2. The 3rd point is already spoken by somebody. Let me come back to the balance 2 points. Therefore, you're kind of setting the tone for yourself, and you become the person around which the entire conversation could happen, rather than say all your 5 points and then move out of the conversation. it's very difficult to take all the 5 points and then finish off time. You're taking a lot of everybody's time. So if you've got a lot of things to talk about, it's good to cue in that this is a topic that you love, that topic that you've done a lot of research on, this is a topic that I'm passionate about, and I would like to talk about it for a long time. But given the fact that we have got only 20 minutes, let me start with just 2 points, and then later during the conversation, I will come with my other points. There again, what are you trying to say? That you're knowledgeable, but you're mindful of other people's time. You want everybody to participate. And that's a signal that you're giving to the interviewers. And I think that's a far more powerful team signal rather than to say that I know everything. And therefore, I am the one who's going to talk.
Okay, so we got it. So the next question is, so is it good to use technical terms or jargons?
Yeah, absolutely. If the topic is technical, if the topic demands that, you can say that. If the group is pretty much of the same nature, you can use that, nothing wrong. Or to be on the safer side, just expand it. You can, whatever terminologies that you have, you're talking about IoT, and then there are 3 things that new technology things that you want to talk about. Expand it rather than only stick to short forms and technology terms.
Yes, sir. And the next question is content or the presentation more important, or fluency matters?
So I think each one has its importance, right? And that's what we spoke about, right? Content, communication, collaboration. To me, these 3 are interlinked. Having the greatest of content, but not communicating doesn't help you. Have the greatest of content and only communicating without collaborating is also not good. So if you can strike that balance between the content that you have, the way in which you communicate, which is a lot of practice that you will have to do to get there, and then be a very smart collaborator. If you are to ask me, if I were to come and be a part of an interview panel in which I'm looking at people to join the sales team or the marketing team, those kind of teams, I think I'll place a lot of premium on how they are collaborating, rather than only knowledge. Because when you finally look at it, when you work in an organization, I don't think content or only knowledge will take you to success. The key thing is about how well you collaborate, how well you can work along with your peers. So to answer your question, communicate as well as possible. Fluency, if you have fluency, it's fantastic. But everybody might not have the kind of fluency which is 10 on 10. For some, it would be 6 on 10, some would be 8 on 10. But then if you can mix it up with the quality of content, be collaborative, then you are seen as an overall package. So that's the whole idea. So it's not one versus the other. It is not as if fluency will always win the day. It is not as if content will always win the day. Only collaborating without content will also not win the day. So balance it out, and you know that it's a way in which things work out. It's not always only one thing which will help you to succeed.
Yes, sir, that makes the answer clear. The next question is that, so is it right to ask pointed questions to other participants?
Pointed questions to other participants, again, makes a group discussion a bilateral discussion. The idea of a group discussion is not to be matching wits with one other person and trying to prove that you have got a better point. There are different ways in which you can do that. You can acknowledge the point made by somebody. If somebody were to say that Kerala's state domestic product is X amount of rupees and Kerala gets whatever amount of foreign remittances into a year, even if that person has not said it correctly, there's no point in asking him, saying that are your numbers correct? Where did you get this information from? That sounds a bit rude. There are different ways in which you can manage that situation. You can say that the speaker before me, or you can take the name, saying that Ajit mentioned Kerala's foreign remittances are so much. I think that number would have changed, and the latest numbers would be a little different. That's a way to kind of paraphrase it, rather than take it head on and say that What is your source of information? How did you get it? Because you're not there to interrogate somebody. The idea of a group discussion is to arrive at a consensus on a topic which has been given. By questioning and arguing, you are not getting to the result that you are supposed to be getting to. So I would kind of stay away, or I would request you to consider staying away from bilateral conversations and pointed questions. If there is some doubt, or if there's some lack of clarity about something which has been said, there is a very smart way of putting that across. Disagree to that point, say that maybe the numbers which were shared, I don't agree to the numbers. These don't tally with what I have recently read. That's a very assertive way of saying, disagreeing with somebody without sounding rude or anything. Saying that, yeah, I've also gone through some of these numbers. They are a bit different from what Ajit had said, or whatever is the name of the person, and then move on.
Yes, sir, we got it. And the next question is, sir, what are the acceptable ways of interrupting so as to make a point?
Yeah, I think we had a whole slide on that, and I think it's your own comfort. What are those lines that you can use? Raise your hand, simple. It comes to you. When you then start speaking, you can say that whatever Gauri had spoken about this, I have a different point of view, or this seems to be one side of the truth. There is always two sides to any situation. So I would like to talk about the other side. These are all different ways of getting in there, saying that, yeah, we have heard all the three speakers till now talk positively or talking about the pros of the topic. I have a slightly different way, and I would like to state that, and this is what I have in mind. So those are all ways in which you're integrating your thoughts into the conversation rather than talking on a different page. Keep in mind, the idea in a group discussion is to arrive at a group consensus on a topic, hearing all perspectives. So, and I think this is something which requires preparation. You can always have a set of lines prepared in your mind and use them. And that's what I tried to do in that particular slide. And I also told you earlier that what happens is, in normal conversation, Malayalam, there is a way in which we will get into a conversation or be very informal and say, let me get into that conversation. But in English, if you're trying to do the same, it might not really come out. So choose the lines that you want to do, like what we spoke about. And I think in the mock discussions that we have in the coming 2 days, we will do a little bit of that.
Okay, sir. So, and the last question is it true that a person who speaks the most has the highest chance of selection?
Yeah. So I think if that was there, then everybody will end up having a very talkative organization, I think. Not really. And it is not about the maximum amount of talk time. It is not about who started or summarized. It's about all the things that I said. So make your point, communicate with clarity, collaborate very strongly. These three, I think, will take you far rather than hogging the entire time. And I think it's a little bit of a reflection of the real world now. And I don't think any TV debate is a good reference for a GD. I think whatever we see in most of the TV channels, if we avoid doing in GDs, I think our GDs will be better. Our organizations will be better, and there are much better chances for success. So please don't role model your GD based upon what happens in a lot of popular TV charchas and debates in which you disagree, you talk, you don't allow the other person to speak, you shout. I think in a lighter vein, it's good to watch them to know what all you shouldn't do in a GD.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think all of the questions are answered, and hope everyone has got their own queries answered. And I invite Sandra Susan for the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. At first, I would like to thank Suresh Kumar sir for his valuable time with us and his contribution to this group discussion session. I would like to thank everyone who have joined in today's session and making it a wonderful one. Next day on 3rd of May, we will be having a mock GD session and where you all will be divided into different groups and will have mentors for each. The sessions will be handled by Rekha ma'am, Suresh Kumar sir, and Murugesh sir. We'll all be getting information about the same from our WhatsApp group. Hope all of you have enjoyed today's session and will be there for our mock GD session the next day on May 3rd. Make sure that you have registered for the same. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suresh.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Sadish.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I'll
you,
request Sadish ji and Murugesh if you can just be on the line.
Yep.
So may I request all the students to please log off. I wanted to spend a little time with Satish and Murugesh for tomorrow.
And can keep 1 or 2 volunteers. Is it okay, Suresh?
Yeah.
Let our volunteers stay back.
Okay.
Others can leave.
Yeah, sure. So are these all the volunteers now?
No.
Cheta, in the background എന്താണ് BBC ആണ്. What is your background? Blue.
BBC, വലിയ BBC.
BBC.
അതിനെ ചെറുതാക്കി മേളില് റൈറ്റ് കോർണറിൽ ലോഗോ ആക്കി തരാൻ പറയണം.
ലോഗോ അതുണ്ട്, അതെല്ലാം ഉണ്ട്.
അത് എനിക്ക് ഒന്ന് അയച്ചു.
ഇതല്ലേ?
അപ്പൊ അത് കാണാൻ പറ്റും. കറക്റ്റ്.
ഇതുണ്ടോ അവിടെ? ഞാനിത് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഒത്തിരി ഷൈൻ ചെയ്യും എന്റെ എല്ലാം. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ്.
അത് പണ്ടേ ഇത്തിരി ഷൈൻ കൂടുതലാണ്. Gauri is volunteer.
You can leave. Gopi Krishnan, you can leave.
Gauri, you will have rights to switch off various people, no?
Yes sir, ഞാൻ റിമൂവ് ചെയ്യാണ് കുറച്ച്.
അതാണ്.
ഇനിയുള്ളത് നമ്മുടെ വോളണ്ടിയേഴ്സ് മാത്രമേ ഉള്ളൂ.
ഞാൻ റിമൂവ് ചെയ്തു. Okay.
Perfect.
Can the live